We're back to the Total Education Celebrity Show, powered by the Simply G Media Network. Again, you can go to my website, totaltutor.net, for more information. Twitter, Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook. And it's pretty interesting. I have two wrestlers on this week. One is a superstar now, and former superstar will be later in this week, Mark Miro. But I'm excited to talk to this guy, especially when he talked off air about, I guess, breaking in the business, the tradition of territories, things like that. So I want to welcome the program TNA star Austin Aries. Austin, thanks for calling. And
Good day.
How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Doing well. Enjoying a little bit of winter weather down here in Florida, which is actually quite nice.
That's really surprising, especially when you're talking about how you broke in Minnesota and stuff like that. So let's go to your childhood, okay? When I was a professional wrestler, I know all our listeners out there know that, and I mention it sometimes, especially the celebrity stars. I never was a wrestling fan. I watched it a bit in the 80s, but it was really kind of laughing and joking around. I was not like the old school WCW fan. I was more WWF, the big guys, and was interested in, Saturday night's main event and things like that. Austin, growing up, especially you broke in right after I kind of retired from the business. Did you ultimately always want to be a wrestler?
No, I didn't always want to be a wrestler. That actual thought process never really crossed my mind. I was kind of growing up playing baseball and some other sports. Wrestling was just kind of like a secret passion of mine. I had one good friend who also liked wrestling, and I started watching wrestling probably in 1982 when I caught some AWA. I think it was on a weekend, Buck Rock and Roll Zumhoff and Sheik Adnan El Casey and Ken Patera and these guys were all coming out, and it just kind of grabbed my imagination. And I attended a couple of events when I was really young and saw some cool stuff. I saw Hogan versus Heenan and Blackjack Lanza in a cage.
Oh wow! Yeah.
And so that was when I fell in love with wrestling. Always just really followed it. It was outside of sports was kind of the thing that I really, really enjoyed. And grew up watching the Crockett Territory and World Class and a little bit of AWA, and then WWF was obviously around then, and would catch some of the Saturday main event like you talked about. And so that was kind of my love affair with wrestling. As I grew a little bit older, when we went off to college, it kind of took a back seat, and of course that was the time when wrestling got really hot in the mainstream, and all the college kids are,
all into it. Yes, I remember those days. Yeah,
cross chopping and knowing your role and smelling what they're cooking and all these things with their shirts, and it left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth because I was a true wrestling fan from back in the day, and these are to me a bunch of bandwagon jumpers. But
exactly, yes,
it was nice that wrestling was actually cool and relevant and part of the mainstream, because it was something that, man, growing up I never really had, and it was nice to see that.
Absolutely, Austin. And so at that point, so it seems like if you're talking about 82, you're might be close to my age, Austin, if you're talking about you went to college, you went all these specific things, and you watched in 82 and stuff like that. So how old are you, by the way?
I'm 35, so I started watching about 4 years old.
Yes, I'm 40. So, okay, so I broke out. I finished up. I started pretty early and then finished up pretty early. Like, I could go back and make another run if I wanted to. No, don't get me back out of a retirement. We're not bringing myself back. But now, Austin, so basically you decide to be trained to become a professional wrestler. How did your family take that? Because we all know, ultimately, when we say, hey, we want to go be a pro wrestler, people look and say, come on now. That's the fake stuff. We all know what and we all know what they say. And so, did you go to your family, especially you're a college graduate, and say, "Oh, I want to be a pro wrestler"? And what did you study, by the way, before that, making that decision?
Well, and to correct you, I didn't actually graduate college, and I was out of the nest at 17, and just kind of doing my own thing and support myself. And to be quite honest, before the decision to start training to wrestle, I wasn't doing really great things with my life. I was kind of rolling the dice in some aspects, making money and trying to find my way. And my family's always been supportive and believed in me and whatever I wanted to do, and they kind of put my focus to it. I think they were happy at that point to see me put my focus and energy in something that actually I had a passion for, and that was on the straight and narrow. And they've always believed in me, and they've always been very supportive. So, at first, I don't know how seriously they took it, or I guess maybe they didn't know what the big picture was. Like, where does it lead? But, it was just something I kept doing and never really looked back, and they're excited for me, and they've been there every step of the way, which is awesome.
So you told me you got trained in Minnesota. So the first day, so you were an athlete. So you played in high school football and baseball, you said, or what sports?
Little bit of football, mostly stuck with baseball. I actually went to Winona State University with the intentions of playing baseball. Once I got there, a fake ID and some house parties, and the intentions changed. And quite honestly, I didn't know if, it's kind of, baseball was a lot of fun growing up, but at that point, it became not fun. It was really a different mentality when I got to college, and as a 17, 18-year-old trying to figure out who you are, I just figured at that time that that wasn't really the direction I wanted to go, and I traded in the baseball cleats and picked up some beer league softball dates instead, and had a good time, and it's all good because it led me to the path where I'm at now. So.
Exactly. So when you were training at the wrestling school, you never knew how wrestling was going to change from the time you started to now. It's a completely different game. We're seeing cyclical cycles in specific ways. You saw the pretty much WWE, WWF just destroying everything, killing every territory, killing every promotion. Now we're seeing I think a turn for the better in wrestling, in my opinion, having other alternatives and things like that. And so you basically got trained, and it's now time to start in the indies, right? And did you have a lot of connections, or is it more like you just got to make those phone calls and send those tapes out and go out there and say, here I am, I want to start working?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because I think I got into wrestling right as it was going. It went through a huge transition. I mean, when I first started, WCW was still around and was a viable number 2 promotion. Japan was a place where a lot of guys would, talk about going to make money. And the internet hadn't really exploded yet. The internet was still new. And so shortly after I got in, all that changed. And that was a big change for wrestling. You had, first of all, the internet, which has changed, our culture so much with all the information and the subcultures that have popped up online of hardcore fans of whatever genre and all different things. Then obviously WWE come in and basically taking everything over and controlling 99.9% of professional wrestling / sports entertainment. Changed the game also. You had Ring of Honor kind of step up and fill a vacuum and a void. TNA stepped up and did the same, but the landscape was different. So it was interesting. Going off working indies as far as connections, not so much. You just make them. You start working the local shows from where you basically trained, and then there's other promotions that work in the area, and you go work those, and you meet a guy who does something down in Iowa, so you drive down and go to Iowa for pennies and work a show there, and you turn a couple of heads, and this guy goes, well, hey, I know this guy over here in Wisconsin that does something. So you go, hey, great, that's where I'm from. Oh, really? They'll put you on the show in Wisconsin, do a few shows in Wisconsin, and all of a sudden Ian Rotten's there and goes, hey, you want to come down to Idaho and Mid-South? You do that, and from there you meet all sorts of other connections. I mean, that's just kind of the spider web, right? You just kind of
You jump in the car, guys.
It just spreads, man. Yeah. You
jump in the car, you have 4 guys and go out there and do it. Or you go out with your girlfriend or something, you just keep driving. And you just say, okay, one of my deals was I wrestled in somewhere in Ontario and then drove all the way to the border, and pretty much was like a 6-7 hour trip. And then to Michigan and all over the place. Wichita, Kansas. I was the Sunflower Heavyweight Champion. Wrestled with Derek Stone. I don't know if you ever ran into Derek before. Great independent back in the day. A bunch of different people. But yeah, the whole deal in this business is that you got to go out there and get seen. And it's just the right break, right time, but ultimately paying your dues. And that's what you're going to have to do to ever get to a TNA, to ever get to Ring of Honor, is pay your dues.
Well, I mean, listen, this is the entertainment business. It's really that simple. No matter what form of entertainment business you're talking, I've got comedian friends, I've got friends in the music industry. I'm starting. I do a little music myself. The journey's all the same. The journey's all the same. You start and you hone your craft, and you start little shows, And as you hone your craft, and if you have the skills and you make the connections, you keep getting bigger opportunities. As you take advantage of those, you get bigger opportunities, and you just keep networking. But yeah, you have to go out there and do it. The thing that's changed a little bit nowadays is that with the internet and with things like YouTube, people want to put something up on YouTube and become the next Justin Bieber, not to put a whole lot of work into it and just get famous.
But that's
and unfortunately, that's not the way it works for 99% of the people.
In entertainment field, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it is. You have to go out there. And really, that journey and that process, that's what weeds out the people who think they want to do it, but they don't really want to do it, or the people who just don't have the acumen and skill to do it.
Exactly, and that's the process. So, working those independents, did somebody say to you, take you under your wing? I would say a Mick Foley took me under my wing and said, you can't keep working in Pittsburgh and think you're gonna get somewhere. So I'm gonna give you the number to Burt Prentice. You go out and work in a territory. You're not gonna make a dime, but you're gonna go out there and learn. You're gonna work 6 nights a week, and you're gonna learn how to work in this business. And that's what he told me. Those are always those guys out there that'll say, hey, so who was that one that kind of took you under his wing and said, this is what you need to do to go to the next level?
I'm still waiting for him.
Okay.
I got to be honest, man. One thing I would say is, I wish I would have had a little bit of that maybe when I was younger, and I probably would have figured things out a little quicker, because ultimately I had to kind of learn the ropes mostly on my own, or by the mistakes made around me. Or my own mistakes. So, a lot of the veteran guys in my area at the time, and because maybe, us young guys were really hungry, and we were also starting to watch this new style of wrestling, this junior heavyweight style. Wrestling was changing in itself. It was more action-based, more maybe spots, things like this, more, and so the veteran guys in that, I think they kind of,
they didn't like it.
They'd sit in the corner. They would sit in the corner about the bitch about the 5'0" 100-pound kid nothing who's in there doing all this stuff. But instead of instill a little bit of that knowledge in a constructive manner, and seeing the passion that these guys had when they went out there, and that's the only reason they were doing it, because they were trying to work hard. They would sit there and bitch, and you know what? Those guys are probably still sitting in those same locker rooms bitching about whoever's there now, and there's a reason. There was a couple of guys, and I'll say a guy by the name of Angel Armani, who was one of the first guys, who was a veteran guy from Wisconsin, who just got it. He got in the business really late, when he was like in his late 30s, early 40s, and still can work now because he just gets what it's about. And he was the guy who helped me out and took me under the wing a little bit, and tried to teach me why to do things and when to do things. And just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And slowed me down, which was what I needed at the time. So there were some guys like that along the way. As far as the journey of how to go where you're trying to get, I don't know. I always changed this because I wasn't sure where I was wanting to go. I just knew I wanted to do this for a living. And, that at the end of the day was my ultimate goal, to be able to say that this is my job.
All right, we'll get back more with Austin Aries, and I'm sure he didn't think he'd have an interview like this, but only a worker could interview Austin like this, because a guy, unless you're in the business or have been in the business, you just guys don't know, honestly, and that's the case. And for a celebrity like Austin, and again growing in TNA and learning, we're going to find out specifically when his big break came. We'll be back in just a moment. We're back to Total Education Celebrity Show, powered by the Simply G Media Network. Again, you can go to my website, TotalTutor.net, for more information. Twitter, Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley. Facebook, and I'm with Austin Aries, TNA star, and we all go through this independent scene, and we talked about certain people. They didn't give you any direction, Austin, and you're talking about your genre was, like you said, this X division, or again the light heavyweight division, that really became this new change of the business, where you guys are doing spot after spot after spot, and I'm sitting here 6'10", building myself as a 7-footer, saying, man, you guys don't tell stories. What are you doing? You do about 85 different spots. We start you at the beginning. I remember the whole deal. And I was sitting here with, I think it was Joe, I'm forgetting, Joey Matthews and Christian York and all of them. And I'm saying, holy cow, you did every move in the book, and I'm main event against the Bushwhackers. What's going on here? So I know exactly what you're talking about, Austin. So they really didn't want to, there was no one really to say, hey, this is how you work, because you're changing it to a more Mexican style style, things like that. Explain your style of wrestling for people that really don't watch that style and stuff.
Well, I mean, listen. It's funny when I broke in. It didn't compute to me that I was small. I don't know. I still haven't figured it out. I know I'm undersized for what the typical perception of a wrestler is, but in the ring, I always felt like I belonged in there, and I was on the same level as anybody else. I just knew that what I had to do physically and what my style would be would have to accentuate my strengths and hide my weaknesses. And to me, the beauty of wrestling is seeing the different styles and the different characters clash and see the story that gets weaved out of that. And so, I mean, I was watching at that time, the junior heavyweight style and the quote Japanese strong style. You were kind of watching that and man, it was funny because at that time when you break in, it's just like an artist when you start writing an album for the first time. You start writing, you got so much in you, it just keeps coming out, and it's a lot, and you're excited, and you're training 3 days a week, and you have a ton of ideas, and you're trying things, and some things work, some things don't, but I just never wanted to be pigeonholed as a certain type of wrestler. I didn't, I kind of rejected the theory of, well, this is what you're going to be, because I wanted to be a guy that could work up and down the card and be the main attraction, or be the guy who's setting the table. So it was important that I did everything well, not just the high-flying things, or, I didn't really learn head scissors takeovers too much, or hurricanranas, because we were in a garage where you couldn't really do anything vertical. So I was really learning the basics of basics. But I was working on the things I did, which is I had a lot of fast twitch muscle fiber, and I'm explosive, and I'm I jump around a lot. I was an athlete and took some gymnastics and things like that. So I was trying to incorporate that into style wrestling, and then also realizing that I was a big fan of submission wrestling and different transitions and different holds, and that when you get guys on the ground, it kind of equalizes size. So if I could be a technician on the mat too, and be able to take a guy down and work there and keep it interesting and effective, that would just help my overall game. So initially, that was like where my focus was. A lot of because of limitations in the ring and stuff with the roof.
Yes.
Really work on that stuff, work on the fundamentals, and get the base solid, and then from there you can always build on top of it.
So the old school way. So tell me specifically, you're working the indies. I guess your big break's Ring of Honor, right? If I was watching your highlight video and kind of learning a little bit about you, your two biggest deals are Ring of Honor and now TNA. So basically, Would you say Ring of Honor was your big break that kind of changed your career in a way to be recognized?
Well, it's funny. I remember a buddy of mine sending me the press release for this new idea of this promotion that was starting up, called Ring of Honor, and he's like, "Man, you should send your tape in there." And me, I'm always like, let me take a few months. I want to get a little more polished before I do it. I always like put my best foot forward, So I wanted to make sure I was ready for it. Maybe I'll think about that. And then actually, I went with Sean Devari and drove down to Tennessee and took a Dr. Tom Pritchard camp. Again, you're paying money out of your own pocket. You're driving X amount of miles. It was like 12 hours, 14 hours, something like that. You're paying for this camp because Dr. Tom at the time was part talent relations with WWE. And that's how you listen. You believe in yourself. You go down and you put yourself out and your best foot forward. There was a lot of delusional guys who were out there just dropping their money and you might as well just have burned it. But I knew that I at least was a guy who had potential that they saw in me. They developed me, So we went down there and did this camp. We got caught in a tornado down there, which actually was a blessing because we got a chance to actually talk with Dr. Tom a little bit more beyond just the camp. And that led to a couple of dark matches for both Devari and myself, which is really kind of what started everything. He ended up getting hired out of that because they were looking, for someone to fill a certain role. And I didn't speak Arabic, and he did. And and then that opened, and then through those dates, we got kind of thrown out there to Jim Kettner, CWA, Super 8. And, anyone familiar with Independence knows that, that's been one of the tournaments historically that's really been a launch pad for a lot of guys on a more national scene, so I got the opportunity to do that, and right around that same time, I made some contacts with Ring of Honor. So all these things kind of happened at the same time, right around 2004. early 2004, and that was kind of the catapult. And then I ended up latching on full-time with Ring of Honor, and that, I guess, was the first, kind of real national spotlight I got.
Interesting, and that's what happens. And the thing that changed the business when I was in it first, the smart mark was not really the big thing. And a shout out to you smart marks out there for sure, because you changed the business and then you made a person like Austin Aries become a star. And no knock on that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because again, it was all about having the biggest muscles in the world and being 6'5" or more, and or weighing 400, 500 pounds, and that was the attraction. And yet they didn't do anything athletic, nothing entertainment wise. And I was watching your highlight tape and was blown away. I said, I've never seen things like you've done in the business, and like moves I've done, but yet you've tried them into the most craziest. So I see the artist in you, and I got to commend you for just watching that highlight film. Now, the process is you get to Ring of Honor, and is Cornette involved with Ring of Honor at this point? Who's big in the business?
No, this is Gabe Sapolsky. This is the original Ring of Honor concept with Gabe Sapolsky, and was really running the show, and at that time, TNA was just starting out too, and the two companies were kind of the two that were kind of filling the void that was left when WWE bought out WCW.
Right.
So, if you look at the collection of talent that was going through at the time, a lot of very familiar faces and names that have gone on to do some great things in the wrestling industry. And really, if you look at historically at that point, wrestling have always kind of had three promotions in a way. At least as far as I can remember back into wrestling, you always had like a three, and ECW for a while was that third kind of smaller promotion, but was still relevant and still changed the landscape of the business. And I think at that point, Ring of Honor was the equivalent to that. If you look at the guys that were going through there and what they've gone on to do in the business, very, very influential in the history of wrestling, even for not being what people consider a major promotion. But there you go, where you're talking about with the internet and things like that, and allowing this creation to kind of come to fruition.
So Ring of Honor gets you discovered, and then when did you decide, did you want to make the jump from Ring of Honor to TNA, or did TNA approach you?
No, I mean, at the time, there was some crossover. Guys were working both, and they approached me about putting my name in some poll for bringing a new guy in, and polling their fans, and between 4 or 5 guys, and if I was interested in having my name in that, and I said, sure, why not? Certainly not going to hurt. And supposedly it was legitimate, and supposedly I won by a landslide, and I went in there and faced Christopher Daniels, and and then that led to them wanting to use me on a semi-regular basis. But at the same time, I was also working Ring of Honor full-time basis, and also running their training facility. So, right there, I was kind of doing a little bit of both.
And then you made the complete jump to TNA at one point, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, well, at some point, when they signed, some things changed between the two business models. Yeah, decisions and were kind of made, and they're offering full-time contracts. It's a lot more complicated than saying I just chose that one. But for a while, I was working both. Eventually, I wasn't just with TNA. I was actually I was on the sidelines there with some different disputes, and that's the process would actually led me back to Ring of Honor full time in 2007 or 8, I believe.
So you finally go to TNA, and now becoming more and more a household name. And I'm sure, again, with the guys that are still around in the business, these are guys been around 20 years, some of them. And then you have a mixture. You have the mixture of the guys that, broke in about your time, and then you also still have the veterans, the big-time veterans that, are still drawing tickets that would have been with WCW if there was still WCW, right? And that's the kind of mixture of what TNA is. Would you agree with me on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they've got some guys that have been some other places, and then they've got their own guys that they've kind of developed themselves, or were guys similar to myself with their name, basically on their own backs, and have gone there to have a bigger stage to compete on.
And right now, kind of tell us some of the highlights, your biggest highlights at TNA What would be those biggest, I guess, memories and I guess the best opportunities that you've had so far in the promotion?
Well, again, I've had 2 runs there, and I was there in 2005 to 2007, on and off, and it was a little difficult for the first tenure there, and so to come back and have the opportunity that I had a couple of years ago for basically a one-off opportunity, just to come on down there for one match. With no expectations, and to be able to take that opportunity and parlay that into the success I've had the last couple of years, from going and being the longest reigning X Division champion, cashing that in, winning the World Heavyweight Championship. After that, going on to win the World Tag Team Championships, the X Division Championship again, being on the screen with people like Hulk Hogan and Sting, wrestle with Sting. I mean, these are all things that I'm so thankful that opportunity came back, and that everything that I've done up to this point was rewarded. And so, those right there are some of the greatest moments that I can think of off the top of my head.
Absolutely, Austin. I mean,
the nice thing is, man, I'm not done. I'm not done. So there's going to be a lot more to pile on top of that. I'm hoping. So we'll just got to keep moving forward.
Absolutely, Austin, and I appreciate you taking the time to tell us your story. You got to write a book or something on this, because it's a tremendous story. But the last point is the biggest surprise is he's a vegan, and I guess I have to bring you back to talk more about being a vegan in a couple of months. I know you'd love to come back and talk to me again, but tell us a little bit about the whole thing of being a vegan specifically, and compared to a lot of the boys, they're not, and to be in the shape you're at and all those different things, that's a surprise, right?
For me, it's just about being healthy, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And once you start to peel back the layers and really see the truth and our eating habits and the food that's being put out there for our consumption, for me, it's an easy decision to make. Once I've connected the dots, I can't disconnect them and bury my head in the sand. And so, I feel great. It's something I feel strongly in, and really strongly in just having people not be misinformed about what's being out there for us to consume, and let people make informed decisions, and if they want to poison themselves on a daily basis or not. And that's not just related to meat and animal products, but just the overall culture of processed food and food that's high in calories but very low in quality nutrition.
Okay, Austin, I'm going to bring you back, and you're welcome to come back to talk more about what's going on, your latest projects, and ultimately the whole thing about being a vegan and living the daily life as a vegan. But where can we, what do you have to promote? I know you have a pay-per-view coming up, any big things, and plus also where our listeners can find info on you.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing, man, is on my Twitter, which is at Austin Aries, and that's Aries like the zodiac sign, not like Buenos Aires. I do frequently talk about current events, my vegan lifestyle, fitness, just the general ignorance of the general population, and all sorts of good stuff. So follow me on Twitter for all the musings that come out of my mouth or my fingertips, I suppose.
All right, well, fantastic, Austin. Best of luck. And who are you feuding with right now, by the way? Like I said, when you get out of the business, you don't want to watch the business. So,
you know what? I'm feuding with the world. That's how I'm looking at it. So, bring them on.
Well, I'm going to have to watch TNA and then tweet it out to you and say, oh, my gosh. See, the problem is if I watch wrestling more, Austin, I'm going to want to jump back in the ring again. And that's just it
gets in your blood. It's time to get out.
It never dies. And I signed specifically have liability insurance for myself because I'm an entrepreneur that I can't go back in the ring, but you never know. Maybe under a hood. I've been the Russian assassin before, so good talking to you, Austin, and we'll definitely stay in touch, okay?
All right, Neil. Take care of yourself.
All right, take care, Austin. See ya. All right, you're listening to the Told Education Celebrity Show, powered by the Simply G Media Network, and we'll be back in just a moment.